Welcome everybody to the EquaF Hangout. Tonight we will be discussing the Reptilian series interview, You're a Star. We have here today Mike McDonald. He's up in Canada. Welcome, Mike. Glad you're here.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks.
Cool. I just wanted to firstly go through a bit about what EquaF is. EquaF is a site that we use those who are walking the Desteni-I-Process. It kind of goes hand in hand with the Desteni-I-Process. The Desteni-I-Process is a process that is a specific structured process that is in relation to the Desteni site. There's a free course, a beginner's course, if you're interested in what we're talking about. I'll place the links in the description of this hangout so you can venture to what the Desteni-I-Process is. So you can basically just get a beginner's look at it if you're new to this. And so there's the Desteni-I-Process, and then the EquaF site is basically the material of this process. So in essence, it's like a school. If you look at Desteni-I-Process as the schooling system, so to speak, this is a school system that creates what is best for all, or brings you to your self-awareness, or to connect with your beingness, or the life essence within you. And this life essence is equal within all living things that are on this planet. So we're speaking about the life that exists within all living things, everything on this physical planet. And there's principles behind the Desteni-I-Process, like oneness and equality, which is realizing that each person has this life, or each being has this life essence within them. And within that life essence, we are all equal within this physical existence because we're all life. So as you kind of venture into the Desteni-I-Process, or the Desteni site and the EquaF site, you'll start to learn these words and what these concepts mean and what these principles are that we are living from. So that's just, and so the EquaF site is a site where there's many different series that go through a plethora of topics, from animals to nature to sex to the mind to relationships. They cover a lot of material, and it's for the purposes of connecting each person with who they really are as life, as self-awareness. And so that is the purpose of these hangouts, these EquaF hangouts, is to kind of open people up to this site and to this information, to support everybody to find that life awareness, life essence within you, so we can create a world that is best for all. That's the purpose here. So we're going to look at the Reptilians interview series, this current series that is out. It's called You Are a Star. There's 3 interviews in this one that we're looking at. We're going to discuss the You're a Star one. I also placed the links in the description for you to reference as well. So Mike, let's just get into it. How has EquaF supported you in walking your Desteni-I-Process, and how long have you been walking the process at Desteni?
Okay, first, so the EquaF, I'd just like to say that all of the interviews are supportive, like in their own way, and I think that's what's so awesome. Like you mentioned how they, touch on a whole range, basically anything to everything is a topic. So I found that, listening to any interview given any given day, that there's, support that I find often, serendipitously. Like I don't necessarily know what I needed to hear, but often just by like opening myself up to, hearing the information, listening, I garner new perspectives that were not, so clear within me, or that may have been kind of buried within me as like questions that weren't so clear. And by listening to the interview, it kind of, synthesizes some points within myself that were kind of uncertain. And so just like aids in my everyday life and giving me like further clarity and direction, and just definitely, a whole range of words that I can use as support to enhance my everyday living. And then the next question, you mentioned how long have I been walking, like the Desteni-I-Process? Geez, quite a while, like since the beginning, or I guess I first came into like contact with Desteni in the fall of October 2007. Yeah, and at that point, it was just like there was a lot of like new material there's still a lot of new material coming out, but at that point it was just okay, like let's just like look at all that there is here to share, because there was a lot that was being shared, and it was just right away for me it was just interesting, some fresh perspectives, and I love hearing new things, so it was just awesome right away.
Cool. Yeah, and that's kind of how I also got into the process as well. Is just there was like a new kind of all new information. Like this information you don't hear anywhere else. So it was quite cool to have this kind of access to this kind of information, because it answers a lot of questions that I had from growing up and from just kind of living in this world. So another thing I forgot to mention was if you have questions or comments, you can place it in the comment section in the Hangout, and we'll answer them. So we have that open for you guys. And also the interview, the EquaF interviews are being spoken through the interdimensional portal, who is Sinette Spies, and our last Hangout that we did, we interviewed her, and she kind of explained herself and explained her experience of being the interdimensional portal and what that's all about. So, all right, so thanks, Mike, for that perspective. Let's go on to talk a little bit about what the Desteni-I-Process is. And in this interview, the Anu interview, the Reptilians interview we're going to discuss, he speaks about the word star and living the word star, and kind of explaining different dimensions about this word star. So we're looking at in this Hangout living words. So can you explain a little bit about living words and how you've kind of walked this point?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so words are very much alive. I mean, if you look at just how we're communicating, how we express ourselves, so much so, words are a big part of it. You say like, there's a common saying, a picture represents 1,000 words. And, like, just if you look at how we see our like reality, we're always communicating, and like words are so much so the building blocks in which we can, create things for ourselves or for others. And it's like an awesome medium of exchange in so many ways. And so, through Desteni, the big like point that really opened up for me with regards to living words is the whole self-reflection aspect on that the words aren't separate from you as these like things out there, but like everything else, it like originates within yourself. And so that kind of was like opening a Pandora's box of like, wow, in so many ways, because it became like a real investigation and point of like intimacy, really like self-intimacy in so many ways. And if you like look at the word intimacy or self-intimacy, it's like self into me I see. And when you take into consideration like we speak these words all the time, and like what's our starting point, like how are we working with the words, like how are we saying what we say, why are we doing it this way or that way. And also just like it gave perspective, like a platform to work with into like looking at the different dynamics of like what comes up in my mind, like at a conscious level on a day-to-day, and then seeing it how, you know, my mind is like more deep than just like the consciousness to it. And yeah, then just being like a whole world based on like the recognition and regard for words, living words, basically, which before, you know, was very much suppressed. It was kind of just something maybe I played with just kind of randomly, or used as like points of manipulation, or just, you know, in various like states, always typically in some sort of reactionary state, whether I was like on a high or I was on like some form of like low. And it was just kind of like, you know, a play out, whether somebody, you know, had said something to me in a particular state, and then I was like on the defense or on the offense. And then through this like process of investigation with words, it, like I said, it opened up like the world essentially to me, like as myself, as like the starting point like of it, and seeing the whole oneness and equality of it all, because it all stems from like our self relationship. And really, you know, I see that as like what leads us into the awareness of ourself here, is through the living of words. Because you know, if you even you just like look at the similarity in the sounding of the word world and the word work, you know, like it's quite close together there. And I mean, you know, it's hard to describe the world we have here without, you know, the usage of words. And going, I guess, into the Desteni-I process, like the specifics a little bit about it, you know, that's like an awesome, just like structured platform to how to work with the words, because like it's all about purifying like the law of your being. And it's so much so like on, you know, checking the past of ourself as like the word dynamics in which we, you know, created different character construction type layouts for ourselves. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that point of the polarity that can be, you know, how we live words. We live it in a way that is based on like an experience of ourselves. So, for instance, say if in the past you got bit by a dog, and every time you now see a dog, you go into a fear reaction because that memory pops up of, oh, a dog bit me, I'm afraid of dogs. So now every time the word dog comes up, or you see a dog, a negative experience comes up based on what happened in the past. So what Desteni-I-Process does is helps you walk through the whole, like all the dimensions within this word dog, and these negative experiences that have been put on this word now based on being bit by a dog in the past. You can walk through it in writing. It's based in writing, so you walk through the self-forgiveness, which is forgiving yourself for the different attachments you placed on this word dog. And through that process of self-forgiveness and self-correction, you purify that word. And then the living words is the basically the purifying of this word, say dog. So you understand how you've created this experience of negativity now in you based on the writing. And so now you understand why you're afraid of dogs, and we also have an aspect of correction. So you write out the correction of it. So, you know, you can just see a dog and not react anymore because you understand and now have wrote out why, you know, how you're going to change yourself to see the dog as just a dog. So using this word, the living words process, you purify that word to just see the dog for what it is. You know, a dog is a mammal on this planet with 4 legs, and that's it. I mean, it's just an animal. It's equal to you, of course, as, you know, it's a living being, but it's not something to be afraid of. And you can now move past that experience and start to interact with dogs and express yourself with dogs and, you know, grow from that point forward. So this Desteni-I process supports with the expansion of yourself and the kind of purifying of yourself through words. So each word you can purify through this process, or each point you face. within this polarity of the negative and the positive. So that's just basically a rough or a basic understanding of the Desteni-I process and how living words is a component of this whole process that Mike and myself and others are walking at this time. And again, sure.
Can I just add one point? It just you just kind of reminded me like of a key word that like jumped out initially when I began looking at destiny, and you know, it definitely was a word that, you know, supported me in so many ways, because it, you know, frankly, I questioned it, and it didn't really exist much in myself at all, like at the time. And the word was responsibility, and specifically self-responsibility. And, you know, like at the time, it was just kind of like, self-responsibility, like what the fuck? To such a point that, you know, I looked at my relationship just with like the word responsibility, forget like putting self in the equation there. And it was just like a thing that, you know, I regarded as like arduous and to be like avoided, that it was all about like avoiding self or avoiding responsibility, that like responsibility was like different points or like ways in which you were burdened into doing like laborious tasks, if you will, and like a definite emphasis on like the bore within that. And like, yeah, that just kind of stemmed through, you know, how I was educated with the word. And I guess, you know, there's a lot of dimensions involved with it there, like through the way in which, you know, the word exchange happened with like my parents and whatnot. Like, let's say school, like you have to be responsible, do your school work. And there was a lot of just, you know, negative connotations to it or whatnot, which, you know, I'd never even considered like how beneficial to my expression and just like my overall like potential that word is, and, you know, can be. And so that was kind of like a mind-blowing point in the beginning, and just questioning that, and then playing with that word and seeing like, you know, my ability to move and express myself stems from that word responsibility. Like, because, you know, responsibility, it's like your ability to respond. And yeah, that was, I mean, a big holy shit moment early on in the Desteni process.
Yeah, I totally agree, because, you know, once you start walking this process and start, you know, redefining words and living them, the potential that you see within yourself and how you start to change is, you know, it's awesome to see. And so, you know, it's cool to have this structure in place and have this, you know, support to, you know, realize ourselves that we are so much more than what we believe we are, or what we've been told from other people that we are, that, you know, we can change ourselves and become more than whatever, you know, what we ever thought of ourselves. So there's so much potential within each of us, and this segues pretty well into the You're a Star interview, the Reptilians interview. So let's look at this word star, and how have you kind of lived this word in the past? Or how did you, like, listening to the interview, how did you kind of see the word as Anu was speaking about the different dimensions of it?
Yeah, okay, so there's like several points there, obviously. One, it being like a fresh and frank reminder of a word that I, you know, was investigating early on in my process, as like a point of self-reflection. And so Anu was definitely reiterating a lot of points that came to my attention, which was cool because, you know, to a certain extent, it was kind of like, oh yeah, that's there, but it kind of like, you know, he made a lot more connections that I hadn't necessarily considered, which was awesome. And it just being like such like a pivot point in a lot of ways, or like foundational point, you know, with like your self-expression, when you consider like how it comes out of you in the speaking of words. And and the responsibility, you could say, in speaking words, because you can really play with like how you say what you say from moment to moment, like how you move, and do what you do from day to day, time to time, because there's so much time we have in our day to move ourselves in different ways. And as much as that is like work, at the same time it's so much so a play, like a play on words, if you will. And this definitely was like in your face reminder, reflection on that point, because like at different times, things can be challenging at times, or you forget, or you get into a state of mind. And so this was cool in a lot of ways like that. And to go back to like earlier relationships with the word star, I guess initially had a lot of like the stereotypical definitions associated to it. Wasn't necessarily in the beginning so much so connected to myself, but as like things seen as like separate from me, or like points of recognition that are given to you, that it's not really given to yourself so much so, which led me into my own investigations with the word star, and just like seeing it as such a connector point and that expression point of it. Because like it's commonly said that stars aren't really here, like you see them but they're not really here. And I'd always kind of thought that was bullshit, because it's like, well, I'm fucking looking right at it, like, you tell me it's not here, it's just like so far away, you think it's here but it's not here. And the more you like look at like, oh, what is a star, it's like all the stuff of the earth, and it's like an explosion, like that's like all us here. And so for Anu to like put it into terms like like your real utmost potential is like the exploding star, was like a really cool analogy, I thought. And it kind of like related in a lot of the ways to which I was like first playing with self-reflecting on myself as the star point, like everybody is the star point, not just as like a like a hippy dippy, like you're a star, I'm a star, like let's all be happy, positive kind of energy thing, but not really like having a sort of practical application to it, or like what does it mean. And for myself, initially, like I saw the star point just as like a connection point, like as a way that we're always reading information wherever we go, whether it's like words specifically, or it's like looking at things, whatever, like we're always reading in one way or another. And so we're always working with information, and it's like different stars aligning, if you will, in so many different ways, as like we're always kind of connecting the dots. And I kind of saw the sky as like that, just kind of a reflection of all these different points. And we're always working with different points, and our words and our like reflection into our own vocabulary reflects these different word and world relationships, so much so. So I saw that as cool, because you can like draw the lines like to connect the stars this way, that way, or whatever. And if you draw them this way or that way, you'll call it a this. But if you draw it that way or that way, you'll call it a that. But they're all always here, and you can make the connection this way or that way. And the process of like living words works so much so the same way. Like, you take like different words as starting points, and you have like associations to them, and you're able to like bridge off them. And the star point was really just kind of like encompassing all these things in an easy to grasp way that kind of hatched on a lot of the considerations I had taken the time to consider before. So it was just kind of like serendipitous in a lot of ways.
So you really kind of looked at the whole point of star and the different dimensions. You spoke quite a lot there, and I kind of looked at it more limited. Like when I heard the interview, what came up for me was just when I was younger, just how I kind of became the star of my family, so to speak. Just because I I was able to like fix all, like I was more into like fixing things and being outside and like cleaning up the yard, and I was into like making things look better. And I was also an athlete, so I was kind of always, you know, I was looked at in my family as like the person that I don't know, basically my parents or my family kind of saw me as like the golden child or whatever that phrase is. So that's what, like, an ego point came up for me when I was listening to it. And so how I kind of related that to the living words process, and how he explained it in the interview of the kind of bringing it back to a practical sense of, okay, the star is basically something that has accumulated over time. It's kind of built itself and accumulated itself to a point where now it's, you know, exploding into the universe and kind of expressing itself out. And so it kind of grounds the point into realizing that, you know, we are all kind of walking our processes to a point of being able to, yeah, express ourselves in, you know, a potential that is here, which is what is best for all. So, you know, what we kind of have created in the past has been done in ego, like how I looked at myself. I am the star of my family, and that makes me a great person, and I'm better than my sisters because, you know, my parents see me as the star. And kind of having that little that ego boost and that kind of experience that I am above my sisters because I am good at sports, or I am seen as good at sports. So you know, kind of purifying that outlook of myself to realize, no, I'm not more than my sisters. You know, my even perception of me in sports is only based on my own like desires and what I want it to be in my self-interest. So you know, it was cool to have that redefinition of how Anu explained it, that realizing that each person is walking their process within their lives, and each living being actually on the planet, because everybody is equal. You know, animals and, you know, plants and everything is expressing itself. And so for us humans who are, you know, having to kind of correct ourselves to change not only how we live within ourselves, but also how we live within this world. We can use this new definition for star as a point of realizing that everybody has to walk a process. Everybody is walking their process, and, you know, you can accumulate yourself in a way, you know, live your life in a way where you're correcting yourself, and at some point you will, you know, burst into the universe and be, you know, the potential that you have built yourself to be. So that's kind of how the process at Destiny is structured, to realize that as you walk this process, you're actually changing yourself in your living to, from how I saw myself as like this like ego, you know, better than people, to actually realizing that everybody is equal, and the best part of myself is someone who stands with integrity and, you know, supports everybody around me, and, you know, actually lives my words, and not just talk the talk, but actually live my talk, and, you know, stand in an example, or stand in a way that supports everybody around me and supports our life. So that's how I've kind of experienced that word in the interview.
But another cool point I just want to mention on that that came to mind when you're talking,
Sure.
is just like the star point just so much so encompasses like the whole seeding process, if you will, of words as like living support that, you know, grow and you substantiate within yourself like over time as you know, you work and play with it, like as you incorporate as you incorporate it. Sounds funny. Because, you know, like, and that's like when it comes through, like, okay, you like investigate, you're looking at this word, and then, you know, a moment comes up, and because like you have that responsibility within yourself, you see like, okay, here's my moment to share this, and it's like something like that you got within you. So it's like, like, here you go, and it's just like awesome to share because you fucking got it to share. So it, you know, it comes through as that, like, yeah, like that's fucking awesome, because that's like, you're awesome that you're sharing with like another, you know, and that's like, that's the shit, really. Like that's just fucking awesome. And that just kind of reminded me, in like looking at the process, or like reflecting on even like, you know, what does self-expression really mean? Like, you know, what is that? What am I as self-expression? Do I know the extent of my potential of self-expression? You know, I would say not at this point, but it's like a work in progress kind of thing. And it's like I see the star point is, you know, like our self-expression as kind of like our utmost potential, as like an eternal orgasm here, you know, just like in full force, like all the time. Like it's not like a wham bam, it's done. It's kind of like that everlasting point of ourself here that kind of like, you know, does the test of time, if you will. Yeah, which kind of like led in, or kind of like led into the interviews before this in the series and after this in the series. I mean, I won't get into it too much, but it was like talked about the like basically like life force essence of a child, that like real, like seemingly like limitless physical energy that a child has access to, that becomes like so much so dormant, like as we become adults, so much so, like, you know, you may be familiar with the saying, you know, like, you know, like that kid just has energy like all day long, like what the heck, like I'm always tired, how come I'm not like that? And, you know, so these points to me were like a reflection reminder of, you know, just like back to basics within ourselves, as like that childhood innocence that just unconditionally expressed, you know, just goes for it, gives it, like lives it.
Right. Yeah. And also the equation of like self-expression, or what is best for all, is, you know, within like living your utmost potential. The equation to live that is what is best for all, because within that you're supporting yourself as well as supporting all aspects of your environment. And that is the highest potential that can be created in the moment. So we're kind of looking at like the highest potential being this point of supporting what is best for all in your environment as yourself, as you're living. And, you know, to look at another perspective of that, it would be like living in self-interest. If you're living in self-interest, you're only looking at yourself, and within that you're not looking at your environment, and so you're harming your environment because you're not considering them as equals. And through that, it's creating kind of a limitation within the actual potential that could be created if we change ourselves into living what is best for all. So that highest potential is based on like an actual equation of doing what is best for all in your living and in your environment. So as you walk this process, you start to understand this more, and you start to kind of see how you can do this. And actually in each breath or each moment, you have a decision and a choice to either live what is best or go into self-interest. And there's many, you know, factors and dimensions and things to consider within this. Like the mind is a huge player in, you know, the self-interest point, and there's so much in the EquaF site that you can study and understand about the mind and the mind consciousness system that the portal goes into. So, I mean, we're just touching on like a speck of what this whole site is about, the EquaF site and the Desteni-I-Process. So again, check out the links below if you're interested in this and you want to learn more. So we do have some comments that I want to share before we end this hangout. So we have some comments from Joseph Kadiak, and he writes he's new to Destiny and he's not so much up to speed, but he's interested in the topic, and he's here watching. So thank you, Joseph, for watching. Again, if you are new, so check out the links for more info. He also writes, this is a very broad question here, which you may or may not be able to answer. Would you say that Destiny is pro or anti-creation, pro or anti-cosmos, or something in the middle? I'm not going to go into that question right now, but I definitely will touch on these kind of topics in Hangouts to come, because we're going to be looking at many different topics, many different subjects. So definitely stay tuned and follow these interviews, or these Hangouts.
Can I say something?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
I would say Destiny is like pro star, really, pro star. Because I mean, you really think about it, it like encompasses, well, like all that we said so far, really. And yeah, Destiny is pro-life, you know, like anti-hate, if you will, like with the consideration, the regard for all life here. So that, you know, is pro-star, because it's all about the expression of self, and everyone has their best expressions, which are pro in so many ways, because the pro is like what's best. And to just like complement with what Garb said about the self-interest point, I think when you really question, you know, like what is like my self-interest or whatnot, and we consider like the words like responsibility, self-responsibility, you know, we get into the realization by looking at that equation that, you know, what is best for everyone is ultimately best for me too, because I'm a direct part of everyone, everything here. That, you know, it's all inclusive kind of thing, and we're all in on the action. We're all part of the party, if you will. So it's yeah, like it's like a shared enjoyment.
Right. Yeah. And you know, each of these words also has to be, you know, purified and redefined, like the anti-hate and the pro stars, for instance. Like the anti and the pro also has attachments and you know, definitions that each person kind of can relate to, but it's not necessarily the actual practical way to live this word. So, you know, just to realize that you know, words are, like Mike said in the beginning, words are alive, and we have to kind of redefine our vocabulary, because how we've structured ourselves in this world has been basically in self-interest. We have seen this within the way we live our lives, and in our world we see the separation that goes on, the war, the poverty, the starvation, like all these things we see in our world are actually a reflection of ourselves, our separation with who we are in ourselves as life. And so it's basically, we have to kind of realize that we have a process to walk within, not only ourselves but humanity as well, to redefine our vocabulary, redefine how we live words. So my view of anti-hate is the same view as Mike's anti-hate and everybody's anti-hate. That it's not a way to incite reaction within another person, but it actually has a definition that is practical and that is livable and that is what is best for all. So there's definitely a process that has to be walked within vocabulary.
Which is like fascinating when you consider all this, because you know, really there's so much to talk about, because you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
just even that question there itself that just came out. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I don't know. Do I? Like, what did you mean when you said this or when you said that? Because it's so funny. Like we're speaking the same language, but are we? Like, because we have to get clarity on all the terms of like oh well, what did you really mean when you said this, whatnot, and part of that I think is we get more effective engaging each other in those points as we engage ourselves, because we're able to like hear more like what is being said here, like just the way it's spoken, and get the specifics of the context, if you will, in that moment. But obviously, quite the process.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of again what Anu was speaking about in this interview, is that yes, there is a process that we have to walk to be able to live words. Like it's not just going to come out of nowhere, and our world is not just going to become what the best, like living harmoniously and bringing heaven to earth. It's going to be created by, firstly, internally, by our own self-will, by changing each one changing themselves within themselves, and then being able to go out in your world and support what is best for all in your world by, walking this process, basically, doing the self-forgiveness, changing yourself within the parts of yourself that you see you're living in self-interest, and changing the vocabulary to live in a way that is practical and that is real, basically, and that supports life. So yes, there's quite a process ahead. He even said that in the interview. But
True.
the potential that's here within each one, and in this world, to create a world that is best for all, is definitely here. I mean, this is for me what life is about, to be part of the solution and make this world a place that everybody can enjoy, and everybody is supported, and everybody is seen as equal. And that's really how it really is. So it's kind of just walking this correction process to become who we really are, and really start to be able to express ourselves out like the star, have that ability in our living to really do that. So we're coming up on the end of the Hangout. So Mike, if you have anything to add or share, go for it.
Yeah, okay. So to complement what you've just been saying there about the star point, and it being a process, that it's not just like abracadabra, it's all done kind of thing. Obviously, I think we wish that we could all just go abracadabra together, and the whole process would be manifested like the best world ever. What comes to mind though is like the practical point that in any given moment we can really bring forth the living of a word as a point of like self-correction for ourselves, because what's become like quite apparent to myself in walking this process is that points come up like within my mind as symbols, if you will, like different points of reaction from time to time. And that the word essentially is the symbol, like representing the energy that's coming up, and I can take action in that moment, and redefine it right then and there, and move myself in accordance to actually having taken action in the moment on that particular word, which then changes everything in my world, like at that moment, because I made the decision to like stop and not continue onward in a energetic play that was coming up within me based on my past acceptances and allowances. And that's kind of like the quantum point it seems to be like more and more emerging in the process as like time compresses, if you will, where our shit is in our face, and we have like the opportunity to like in the moment like take a breath, look what's here, and respond as like the awareness point that's beyond just playing out the reactionary dribble that we've done time and time again for so many times.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. So we're wrapping up the the EquaF Hangout for tonight, and I thank you for viewing, and thank you, Mike, for participating. I really enjoyed your perspective.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. It was fun.
Great. So we did have a question about the time zone. This is 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you join the EquaF Facebook group or the EquaF Hangout, the EquaF YouTube channel, you'll be able to subscribe and kind of get the latest from once, every time these Hangouts are broadcast, there'll be kind of like an ad shown, so you can kind of stay on top of these Hangouts, and the time will be set to your time zone. So that will solve that point. All right, thanks everybody for viewing, and see you next time.
Bye, everyone.